Everybody, so welcome back to the Vizio All-in-One system. We now have our new cooling fan to install, and also we're going to try something to see if we can get Windows 11 24H2 working on this machine. Now, I've already posted one video of this system, and if you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you do so. That way you'll be up to date on this system as of the day of this video. So basically, I realized that the fan had failed in this thing. This machine, in its wonderful glory, never bothered to display any error messages of any type regarding anything thermal or fan related. You know, most computers generally, especially OEM systems, they would display an error message upon startup when they do their fan test during the power on self-test, and promptly display the error message saying that the fan has failed to turn off the computer or press whatever key to ignore. Well, probably better to not have that option if it's a CPU fan. But yeah, this thing basically ran as a solid state laptop all of the previous video, with no working fan. It actually didn't overheat. It did get pretty hot though, with CPU temps nearing the 80s. But we're going to open this thing up and we're going to change out that fan. It's actually the cooling fan assembly. I may just change the fan, I don't know, we'll see when we get it open. But basically I had ordered on eBay the cooling fan assembly, and it wasn't much. I think I mentioned the price in the previous video, something like that. I don't think it was any more than $30. I think it was less than that, probably way less than that. But let's get this thing opened up and have a look inside. Okay, so here's this thing in its wonderful glory. Go ahead and unpack our fan here, which our eBay seller reused an Amazon Prime, or this Amazon delivery envelope, which is not a bad idea. Instead of throwing it straight in the trash, like a lot of us do. So this thing was shipped all the way from California to North Carolina, and it arrived, I think it was just 2 days, with ground advantage shipping. That's like unheard of nowadays with our wonderful USPS. Normally stuff in California takes like close to a week to get here. But here it is, well packaged. It's the whole cooling fan assembly. And what I was saying earlier was, could probably just swap the fan over, but I'm not certain on that. So I think it'd be easier to just clean this off, get this old thermal compound off of there, and swap this over. I'm not going to bore y'all out with that process because I've already done it once in the previous video. So I'm going to get this changed out and we'll go from there. Now, before y'all say, oh, the fan was disconnected, Nick, that was the problem. Just FYI, I did some testing in the prior video. Again, that's why you should watch the previous video if you haven't done so already. I tested this fan. This fan is in fact dead. I hooked up a different fan to this header here and the fan worked. So it's definitely a bad fan. Okay, so we got to replace the fan in here, and looks like we should be good to go. Hopefully this in here will work just fine. We'll find out shortly in this video. But next, what we're going to do here is we're going to pull this solid state drive, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of it. I'll make a copy to a virtual disk image on the Flexi over here, my service computer. Because what we're going to do is I'm going to drop in a fresh installation of Windows 11 24H2. More or less what I've done is I had more or less begun the installation, and at the first restart I actually shut down the system, and I'm in the process of putting together a video on that. And it's an option for stubborn machines like this Vizio that don't want to boot 24H2. Now, of course, this machine does not meet the Microsoft Elite Class system requirements on Windows 11. However, it should meet the hard requirements for 24H2. But yet, this machine, when you clean install 24H2 on it, once it goes to restart, it just, yeah, it actually displays a disk read error or something like that. Press Control Delete to restart. So it has to do something with the bootloader, I'm guessing, and I'll talk about that more in this video later on. But let's go ahead and copy this SSD, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop in the image from, basically what I had done was I started an installation on a different system, and once the system rebooted, I actually shut it off, pulled the SSD, and made a backup of it. So that being said, I'm going to be doing that off camera. But I do have a video on how to clone drives if you're interested in the process. Okay everybody, so I have backed up the contents of this SSD, and then I copied over basically the fresh install image of Windows 11 24H2 to this. The reason why I did that is sometimes with some laptops and some desktops, especially ones where you cannot physically disconnect the card reader device, what can happen sometimes is when you go to install Windows, it sees this as another like hard drive. It's weird, but it happens sometimes. And what can happen is it can put the more or less the startup files for Windows in the wrong spot, and it can cause kind of the error message that we had, or at least I had seen with this thing previously when trying to install 24H2 on it. It's really weird because the issue was not present with 23H2, but it was present with 24H2. And this is literally like a last resort effort to try to force install 24H2 on this system, because really it should meet the hard requirements for 24H2, having the Core i3 3110M processor. So what I've done here is, I don't know for sure if the HDMI outputs on this thing work without the original monitor attached. We're about to find out, because this is the only way I can test this thing without having to like throw it all back together and test it that way, because this thing is a real pain to get into. Like I say, it's just, they made it pretty, and at the same time they sacrifice reliability and ease of servicing, because really this thing is a piece of So I had to go scavenge the monitor off of my TV box bedroom computer, because it's the only one that I have that has an HDMI port. Well, the ones on Mid-Tower Lux also have HDMI, but that would have been a lot of trouble to disconnect those with all the wires behind that system. So I grabbed this one. So I'm going to plug in this to the base unit / AM radio. That's what it sounds like. The base unit has the power supply and a subwoofer. And even with the computer not even physically attached to it, I can still hear a faint noise from the speaker. This comes to show how this thing is. So what I'm doing first is I'm going to plug it in, start it without the SSD, see if it puts up anything on the monitor. Then I'll go through the process of installing the SSD. And of course it starts right up, typical Vizio computer fashion. We see our fans working. And it looks like we're getting nothing on the monitor. Great. Tell you what, I can't stand this freaking thing. This thing really sucks. It really does. These HDMI ports might actually be inputs for the built-in display. Therefore, the only way I could test this is really to just throw it back together and just hope for the best. And if it doesn't work, then I guess I'll just have to clean install 23H2. Screw it. Honestly, I hope I never see this thing again. Really, it's getting to where I hate it that much. I mean, the Touch Smart was loads easier to work on. Heard a weird noise from the power supply just a moment ago. Pretty certain that our monitor would have auto-detected by now. Yeah, cable not connected, there you go. Apparently this thing does not support outputting a signal on the HDMI ports without the original monitor being attached, or these are actually inputs for the monitor that would be on top of this unit. Like I say, this thing is just a pile of garbage. I mean, I got several laptops that have no issue using the HDMI port as the primary monitor. Matter of fact, that's how my TV box in the living room is set up. It's actually a laptop motherboard sandwiched inside of a old DirecTV set-top box shell. So, anyways, it looks like I'm going to throw this thing back together and just hope for the best. If it does not boot off of this with 24H2, I will just have to clean install 23H2 because I am not tearing this thing back apart. I'm done. I'm done. Okay, but I have one more idea. I'm going to just plug this up and see what happens. My theory is once you get into Windows, you can't just immediately power off the system. There is the power off delay on the power button. So I'm thinking if it successfully loads into Windows, then the power button won't immediately function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this solid state drive in. And also what could happen is perhaps the BIOS on this wonderful hunk of junk may not support outputting to the monitor, but Windows would, in theory. So we're just going to see what happens here. Let's go for it. Starting up right now. So we probably won't see anything on the monitor. You might hear some random noises from the speaker back there. Like I say, the thing tends to have a sound like an AM radio. I think we've waited long enough. Let me just tap the power button and see if it shuts right off. And it does. Okay, so back to plan A. I'm going to just throw this thing back together. And yeah, then I'm just going to throw it back together. If it doesn't boot, then I'll just clean install 23H2 and start over from scratch. Okay, so I got this thing back together, so it's going to plug it in because we know it's going to start right up as soon as I plug it in. Unless this time it decides to behave differently. Wow, that's interesting. It actually didn't start up by itself this time. I'm actually going to press the power button. Yep, and then here you go. A disk read error occurred. Press Control and delete to restart. Boy, this thing's a wonderful hunk of junk. So, looks like I'm going to have to clean install 23H2 back on this thing. So that's all it can run. Or at least that's the newest Windows 11 it can run. So that's what we're going to do. And it looks like we're having the issue with the dim screen again. Turn it back off. Turn it back on. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I might give this thing another year of service. Right, what I should say is, I foresee this thing lasting maybe another year before it finally gives up the ghost for good. But yeah. So what I'm gonna do off camera is put Windows 11 23H2 back on this thing. I've already shown it in the previous video. Okay, did it just shut itself off there? You see, this time the the screen is at the proper brightness. I'm telling you, this thing is just, it's a piece of garbage. It really is. This is probably the worst machine I've ever worked on. I mean, for poorest build quality, I'd say this one definitely is icing on the cake. It made this thing look all nice and pretty, but decided to sacrifice reliability in the process. No kidding. Alright, so off camera I'm going to put Windows 11 23H2 back on this thing, and we'll come back when it's all ready to go. Okay everybody, so the Vizio computer is back up and going. So what I did was I actually utilized that backup I made of the SSD for this thing, copied that data to this SSD, and then used this, well, it's right here somewhere, SATA to USB 3 adapter, and installed, more or less I did a clean installation of Windows 11 on this thing, and I slapped on there some disk partitioning software and did a restart and had it do the disk copy from the external SSD into the internal SSD. And then now we are back with the previous Windows 11 23H2 installation. So I got Harmar pulled up here to show you the temperatures of this thing. Running much cooler now that we have a working fan. Yeah, 40s for temperature is a lot better than 80s. And that's of course degrees Celsius. So yeah, this thing's definitely running a lot cooler. The fan is back up and, oh yeah, the fan's back up and running. The screen, all of the backlighting is working out right now at least. But yeah, this thing's definitely been a pain in the butt. I'll be glad to get rid of it. Hopefully it never comes back. Yeah, good job Vizio. Good job on engineering a piece of junk that looks like an Apple product. I mean, seriously. So, I mean, otherwise it's running pretty decent. But anyways, I think that's going to wrap it up for this thing. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.